The courtroom was packed. Not just full, it was overflowing. Every bench was taken. Reporters stood shoulder to shoulder against the back wall, and even the hallway outside buzzed with whispers and camera flashes. The air was thick with a tension that hadn't broken since the doors first opened that morning. You could feel it, like a storm hanging just above everyone's heads, ready to erupt. At the center of it all sat Kody Brown. His signature curls were tousled from the inside out, and his face, tanned and lively as always, had lost all hue. He sat rigidly at the defense table, fingers drumming a nervous beat upon the wood. His jaw gripped and released. His leg bounced furiously under the table, and his eyes refused to leave the door. Was he waiting for someone? Or simply praying that this was some kind of dream? He wasn't accustomed to this, not the cameras, not the silence, and certainly not the accusations. This was not a TLC set where he could script the story. Here, it was a different set of rules. Here, anything he said could be used against him. On the other side of the room, the prosecution's team was just as tense, but with a subtext of quiet power. Christine Brown sat there in a navy blue suit, her hands neatly clasped in her lap, shoulders straight, eyes keen. Years of heartache, humiliation, and betrayal had hardened her, not into bitterness, but into determination. She was not here to bawl. She was here to reveal the truth. Next to her, Janelle inched forward, mouthing something, and Mary remained quiet, a mask of seriousness on her face. But it was the vacant chair next to them that spoke volumes. It had been reserved. A nameplate rested on the chair. Witness, Gwendlyn Brown. Kody looked at that seat over and over again. His lips were pressed into a thin line every time he did. Gwen hadn't shown up yet, and that bothered him more than anything else. And beside Kody, almost intimately close, sat Robyn Brown. Her normal calm demeanor was nowhere to be seen. Her eyeliner was already smudged, and she held a tissue in one hand as if it were a lifeline. Each time she heard someone utter the word fraud or financial manipulation, her lips curled like she desired to protest, but was unable to. She breathed something to Kody. He didn't react. His fists were crossed so tightly his knuckles paled. She breathed again, louder. Kody, please say something. But Kody didn't reply. His thoughts were somewhere else, because this was more than a family squabble over broken vows or failed unions. This was more than about public perception or gossip mags. This was something sinister, something that could destroy it all. Because today, Kody Brown was not just a husband. He was not just a father. He was the defendant in a case that could destroy everything he'd ever worked for. The voice of the bailiff sliced through the courtroom like a knife. All rise. Court is now in session. The Honorable Judge Catherine Lowe presiding. Everyone stood. Judge Lowe entered, a strict woman in her early 60s, well known for having no patience. She pushed up her glasses, looked around the room, and nodded slightly before sitting. Please be seated. As the room quieted, she addressed Kody directly. Mr. Brown, you are presently before the court on charges of civil fraud, financial malfeasance, and willful violation of fiduciary duty in regard to family assets held in common. Are you familiar with the nature of the charges? Kody nodded. His voice snagged in his throat before he could reply. Yes, Your Honor. Very well, we will start with opening statements. The prosecutor, a gaunt man with graying hair and a crisp voice, rose. Your Honor, members of the court, what you are going to hear is not about money. It's about manipulation, deception, and power. It's about the way one man, who was put in the position of care for the entire family, used their trust against them. He paused. All eyes were on him. We will show you the records. We will present testimony from those who knew Mr. Brown best. And above all, we will present testimony from an unexpected witness, who will tell the whole truth about the man you believe you know. Kody bristled. Surprise witness? He hadn't heard a thing about it. He looked at his lawyer, who flashed him a brief, impassive smile. Christine observed him in silence. She had anticipated this response. The witness was her ace in the hole. Outside, however, someone waited. Gwendlyn Brown was 22 years of age. She was dressed in a plain blouse, curly hair tied back. She wasn't here to make a scene. She wasn't even certain if she was prepared. But she had decided, and nothing could reverse that. For years she'd seen her family break apart, not only from divorce, but from deception. She recalled the late-night fights, the hushed phone calls, the way Robyn always seemed to have more attention, more money, more of Kody's shielding. And she recalled being reminded to keep quiet, to not rock the boat. But Gwen wasn't a child anymore. She was a woman. And she had something to say. She reached for the courtroom door. Inside, the judge turned to the defense. "Mr. Davis, your opening?" Kody's lawyer stood. He spoke confidently, but without the same fire. "Your Honor, what the evidence will demonstrate is that my client never once acted out of malice. Mr. Brown has had the burden of caretaking an extremely complicated family arrangement, with extraordinary emotional and financial dynamics. Blunders were perhaps committed, but there was never fraud. Only confusion, stress, and a father struggling to contain an impossible circumstance." Kody nodded. For an instant he seemed relieved. Like perhaps that would be sufficient. But it wouldn't be. Christine shifted to whisper to her attorney. He smiled faintly and handed her a note. "She's here." The judge was about to call the first witness when the courtroom door creaked open. Every head turned. Gwen entered, her eyes met her father's. And in that one moment everything changed. Kody's face twisted. Not with shock, but with terror. Because Gwen knew it all. And now the court would too. The courtroom remained motionless, waiting with bated breath. The judge looked over toward Christine's table and nodded. The prosecutor stood up effortlessly and nodded toward a fat file of papers laid out on the table. "Your Honor, the prosecution will introduce evidence of financial mismanagement, diversion of assets, and intentional deceit by the defendant, Mr. Kody Brown." Christine straightened up. This was the moment she had been waiting for. Not revenge, but justice. A huge projector shone behind the prosecution's table, and with a single click, the first slide flashed. A spreadsheet called Brown Family Financial Trust 2019 to 2024. There were dozens of line items, but just one trend. Large, inexplicable withdrawals, taken out of joint family accounts. Every transfer had one destination. An account named Safe Haven Holdings, held by Robyn Sullivan Brown. Mary stooped forward. Janelle shut her eyes tightly and shook her head gradually, as if she had seen those numbers before but never in such sequence. "Here's what you see." The prosecutor started. A sequence covering 5 years. Family money, donated by Christine, Janelle and Mary in equal proportions, was taken quietly under the guidance of Kody Brown. But none of these women were ever told until today. The gasps in the room were palpable. Even some of the jurors looked at each other. Kody's face reddened. He squirmed in his seat, at last whispering something to his attorney. But the prosecutor continued. His tone measured, almost surgical. "Those funds were for tuition, home upkeep, family businesses and retirement investments. Instead they were diverted. And not just into private accounts. We found luxury furniture buys, private school fees for Robyn's children alone, and more than $90,000 in legal retainer fees, paid out 6 months prior to when Christine had even filed for separation." The courtroom buzzed with outrage. The arithmetic was no longer theoretical. It was personal. Christine gazed ahead, unblinking. This did not surprise her. She had found the first clue almost a year ago. In a stack of standard tax documents Kody had abandoned in a hurry. She'd spent months tracking the money, paying for her own forensic accountant, and quietly accumulating witnesses. Her truth now was being told, aloud and loudly, under oath. The judge arched an eyebrow. "Mr. Brown, would you like to respond to these accusations at this point?" Kody stood slowly. His voice trembled, but he forced it out. "Your Honor, I never intended to deceive anyone. This family, our lifestyle, it's complicated. I was doing what I thought was right to keep everyone safe, secure." The prosecutor didn't let him breathe. "Then why didn't you tell the other wives? Mr. Brown, why was it a secret? Why did Robyn have access to everything?" Kody's mouth opened, then closed again. Robyn glanced over at him, whispering frantically, "Say something, please," but Kody remained quiet. The deception he'd been perpetuating for years, that he was treating them all the same, was finally crumbling under the power of facts. The following slide came onto the screen. It was a reproduction of an internal memo from a family business meeting dated August 2020, and had been conducted by Kody. In it he declared, "All profits and family assets will be divided fairly, and remain accessible by all 4 spouses." Christine's attorney walked to the witness stand. "Christine, when you read this declaration, did you feel you were getting your fair portion of the assets?" She nodded once. "Absolutely. We believed in him being honest." "Did he ever say anything about the Safe Haven Holdings account?" "No. My accountant told me about it. He kept it from all of us, but Robyn. And when you asked him about it, he said I was overreacting and trying to stir the pot. He said, 'Don't turn the kids against Robyn. She didn't do anything wrong.' But he never said he didn't take the money." The courtroom buzzed again. Everyone could see it now. This wasn't just neglect. This was a long calculated plan. And it was about to get worse. "Your Honor," the prosecutor said, "we have one more piece of evidence before calling our next witness." Another slide. This one wasn't a bank statement or memo. It was an email salvaged from Robyn's ancient laptop, submitted of her own free will during discovery. The time was January 2021. The note was brief. "They'll never find it. Let them whine. You and I are covered. It's ours now." There was no subject line. No note. Just that. Robyn held her hand over her mouth. Kody jumped up, almost tipping over his chair. "Objection. That was taken out of context. That doesn't say what it appears to say." The judge rapped her gavel. "Sit down, Mr. Brown. And calm down. You will be given the opportunity to testify." Kody slumped back into his chair. Christine's attorney gazed straight at him and stated calmly, "We're not done." Over the way, Janelle whispered to Mary, "That's his private email. The one he swore he never used anymore." Mary did not say a word. Her hands were clasped so tightly her knuckles were purple, but she said all she needed to in silence. At that moment, the bailiff walked up to the judge and handed her a tiny slip of paper. The judge read it, nodded faintly, then looked out over the courtroom. "Counsel, it seems your next witness has arrived." The whole room turned their heads, because they knew who it was. The door creaked open. Gwen entered. No words, no introduction, just the crisp clicking of her boots. As she moved to the front, Kody rose again, his voice cracking. "Gwen, you don't need to do this. We can talk." She met him straight in the eyes. "I'm not here for you, Dad. I'm here for the truth." The judge adjourned briefly. The room exploded. Christine breathed deeply for the first time in hours. Robyn sat frozen, shaking. Janelle teared up. Mary just looked at Kody, not with rage, but with something harder, disappointment. Kody massaged his temples as journalists flooded the hallway. The walls were closing in, and everyone was aware of it. The next session would bring Gwen to the stand. And when she spoke, everything Kody had hidden for years would come undone. When court reconvened, the air had changed. People didn't just sit, they braced. Reporters leaned forward, pens hovering. Fans outside glued their eyes to every live update, because now, the most unexpected voice in the Brown family was about to be heard. "Your Honor, the prosecution calls Gwendlyn Brown to the stand." Kody's breath was caught. He saw his daughter make her slow way to the front of the courtroom, each step sounding as loud as a ticking clock. She was peaceful, more at peace than anyone had anticipated. She didn't look at her father. She didn't have to. The message was in her walk, in her shoulders, in the tilt of her head. The bailiff administered the oath. "Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?" "I do," she replied firmly. The prosecutor advanced. "Gwendlyn, how would you characterize your relationship with your father in the past few years?" She hesitated for a moment. "Distant, strained. And after I began asking questions." "Cold, what type of questions?" "About money. About why Mom was struggling. And Robyn had it all. About why some of us weren't getting birthday presents anymore, and others were getting iPads." A chuckle from the gallery. The judge smacked her gavel. "Once. Gwen went on. I listened in on him once on the phone. He didn't realize I was there. He said, and I quote, let them turn on one another. As long as Robyn and I are safe, the rest doesn't matter. A collective gasp swept through the room. Kody visibly winced. Robyn's head fell into her hands. Gwen stared rigidly forward. That's when I understood. This wasn't about faith or family. It was about control. And in an instant, the courtroom changed. Because suddenly the tale was not simply about money. It was a matter of betrayal. And it had a witness with nothing to lose. The judge's voice echoed through the room. The court now calls Robyn Brown to the stand. The room fell silent in an instant. Robyn stood up slowly, her hands shaking. Her makeup, which had taken so long to apply that morning, was starting to run from the tears she couldn't suppress while Gwen testified. She resembled a woman desperately attempting to hold herself together. And failing. She sat down on the stand, speaking in a tiny voice. Yes, I promise to tell the truth. The prosecutor did not waste any time. Mrs. Brown, do you know about the Safe Haven Holdings account that's in your name? Robyn nodded. Yes, was this account used to hold money originally shared by the Brown family? I didn't know initially. Kody said it was an emergency savings account. Did you ask him? I did. But he explained. He explained that if the others knew, it would destroy everything. The prosecutor moved closer. And when the money just kept rolling in, did you ever cut it off? Did you ever talk to Christine, Janelle, or Mary? No, she sobbed. Why not? Because I was afraid. Afraid of losing him. Afraid he'd tell me I betrayed him too. The tears flowed freely now. Her voice broke. He said they already hated me, that I was causing the family to dissolve. And perhaps I did believe it. Christine blinked but did not speak. Gwen gazed at Robyn as though she were gazing at a stranger. And then Robyn faced the judge. I never wanted this. I pleaded with him to make things right. I pleaded with him to be truthful. And what was his response? Asked the prosecutor in a gentle voice. He said, if I go down, we all go down. And the courtroom fell into complete silence in an instant. Because now, even Robyn was against him. The courtroom was never so still. The judge's expression was impassive. As she scanned the last papers, Kody slumped in his seat, no longer bouncing his knee or stealing glances at the door. His arms crossed, but that air of confidence which had characterized him was entirely gone. He seemed small. Christine sat tall, Gwen beside her now, holding her mother's hand. Mary and Janelle, silent the entire time, exchanged a look that only years of shared survival could create. Finally, Judge Lowe looked up. This court has carefully considered the financial information, personal affidavits, and correspondence that have been put before evidence. Upon consideration of that which has been submitted, we conclude that Mr. Kody Brown had engaged in willful concealment of family property, financial manipulation, and violation of mutual fiduciary duty. Kody didn't blink. He just gazed straight ahead, as if he wasn't present in his own body anymore. Mr. Brown is required to make full restitution of $287,000 to Christine, $162,000 to Janelle, and $145,000 to Mary, for withheld common income and diverted property. Gasps echoed through the room, not due to the figure, but because it was happening at last. Consequences, justice, truth. The judge went on. In addition, Mr. Brown will no longer be legally entitled to any other remaining joint family trust money, and any additional family income or possessions have to be dealt with by full written agreement of all the parties concerned. This is with immediate effect. She then paused, looked squarely at Kody. Mr. Brown, this court does not only see financial harm, but profound emotional harm. Harm which cannot be turned back by any amount of money. Kody nodded slowly. Still, he didn't say a word. When the judge rose and exited the bench, Christine let out hard, held in for years breath. Gwen hugged her mother. Janelle turned to Mary and just whispered, "It's over." In the hallway outside the courtroom, cameras flashed, fans sobbed, and reporters yelled questions. But within there was a peculiar calm. Robyn stood alone, not with Kody, not with anyone. She looked at the now vacant defense table, the chair where Kody had sat, and for the first time in years, perhaps ever, looked utterly alone. Kody finally stood and left, head down, his lawyer beside him. No words, no statements, no apologies, just silence. At home, Christine sat in her kitchen. No cameras, no scripts, just quiet. She opened a drawer, pulled out a crumpled handwritten letter Kody had written to her years ago, promising to always protect the family. She folded it neatly. Then she threw it in the fire.